A crazy schedule can make it easy to fall back into your dinner time recipe rut. Keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week, so there's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. With so many in-season ingredients, you'll taste all the freshness of fall in every bite of HelloFresh's chef-crafted recipes. Produce travels from the farm to your door for peak ripeness you can taste. We all know HelloFresh takes the hassle out of mealtime, but did you know it can also save you money? HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout. That means less stress in your day and more money back in your pocket. HelloFresh makes cooking so easy and fast. It's something that I really need in my life and really look forward to. Go to hellofresh.com/55minute and use code 55minute for 50% off plus free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/55minute and use code 55minute for 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Coming up on 5-Minute News. Trump attorney pleads guilty over efforts to overturn Georgia election. Majority of Americans see Mexico as a partner despite immigration problems. And Palestinian supporters struggle to be heard in Germany and France. It's Friday, October 20. I'm Anthony Davis. Trump lawyer Sidney Powell pleaded guilty to reduced charges yesterday over efforts to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election in Georgia, becoming the second defendant in the sprawling case to reach a deal with prosecutors. Powell, who was charged alongside Trump and 17 others with violating the state's anti-racketeering law, entered the plea just a day before the selection was set to start in her trial. She pleaded guilty to 6 misdemeanors, accusing her of conspiring to intentionally interfere with the performance of election duties. As part of the deal, she'll serve 6 years of probation, will be fined $6,000, and will have to write an apology letter to Georgia and its residents. She also recorded a statement for prosecutors and agreed to testify truthfully against her co-defendants at future trials. Powell was initially charged with racketeering and 6 other counts as part of a wide-ranging scheme to keep the Republican president in power after he lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden. Prosecutors say she also participated in an unauthorized breach of elections equipment in a rural Georgia county elections office. The plea deal makes Powell the most prominent known person to be working with prosecutors investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the election. Her cooperation in the case and participation in strategy talks threatened to expose the former president and offer insight on what he was saying and doing in the critical period after the election. Above all, the guilty plea is a remarkable about-face for the lawyer who, perhaps more than anyone else, strenuously pushed baseless conspiracy theories about a stolen election in the face of extensive evidence to the contrary. Most people in the US see Mexico as an essential partner to stop drug trafficking and illegal border crossings, even as they express mixed views of Mexico's government, according to a new poll. The poll from the Pearson Institute for the Study of Resolution and Global Conflicts and the Associated Press Nork Center for Public Affairs Research found that about 2/3 of Americans see their southern neighbor as having at least a friendly relationship with the U.S. Relatively few within that group, or 16%, consider Mexico a close ally. Meanwhile, U.S. adults are more likely to have an unfavorable view of Mexico's leadership than a favorable one. The poll captures the different perceptions Americans have of Mexico, its leadership, and the estimated 10 million immigrants living in the U.S. Mexico is the largest trade partner of the US, and both countries have deep diplomatic and cultural ties. But both Washington and Mexico City are under immense pressure to reduce unauthorized migration at their shared border and to stop the trafficking of fentanyl and other synthetic opioids that killed around 75,000 people in the US last year. Americans see a shared responsibility for the two countries to address their international problems, including illegal immigration and drug trafficking. About 2/3 of Americans say the US government and Mexican government should both be responsible for preventing immigrants from Mexico or from other countries from getting into the US illegally through Mexico. An even larger share, or about 3/4 of Americans, say the governments should both be responsible for preventing illegal drug trafficking from Mexico to the US. The results come as several of the Republican presidential candidates say they would use military force against Mexico in response to the trafficking of fentanyl and other synthetic opioids. As the Israel-Hamas war rages on, some in the GOP field are suggesting, without evidence, that militants may be taking advantage of the mass arrivals of migrants to come through the US-Mexico border. As tens of thousands of people took to the streets around the world on October 13th in support of the Palestinians, all such protests in France and Germany were banned. The two countries, home to the European Union's largest Jewish and Muslim communities, have cracked down on pro-Palestinian groups since Hamas militants burst over the border from Gaza and killed more than 1,400 Israelis on October 7th. The governments say the curbs are to stop public disorder and prevent anti-Semitism. But supporters of the Palestinians say they feel blocked from publicly expressing support or concern for people in the Hamas-controlled enclave of Gaza without risking arrest, their jobs or immigration status. More than 3,500 people have been killed in Gaza since Israel launched a campaign of retaliatory bombing, while a blockade that prevents food, fuel and medicine from getting in has created a humanitarian crisis. French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin clamped a nationwide ban on pro-Palestinian protests last week, citing the risk of public disorder. 9 have been banned in Paris since October 7. Over the weekend, Paris police issued a ban on the presence and circulation of people that present themselves as pro-Palestinian. Since October 12, they have issued 827 fines and arrested 43 people. In Germany, Berlin police have approved 2 requests for pro-Palestine protests since the initial Hamas attacks. Both were proposed as silent vigils. But at least 7, including one called Jewish Berliners Against Middle Eastern Violence and another entitled Youth Against Racism, were refused permission. At least 190 people have been detained at protests. The French and German governments say they need to protect Jewish communities given a rise in anti-Semitic violence since the attacks by Hamas, which is deemed a terrorist group by the EU and several other countries. In Germany, the issue is particularly acute because of the killing of 6 million European Jews in the Holocaust by the Nazis. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.